Hello everybody, welcome to the Event Industry News Podcast. My name is James Dixon, and as always I wish you a very good morning, good afternoon or good evening whenever or wherever you tune in to today's podcast from. Our podcast today is being recorded from the base of Universal Live, well-known AV and technical supplier to the events industry. I'm at their HQ up in Bradford in West Yorkshire. You may remember some episodes of the podcast from a few months ago where we set up in their offices, and we're back today to enjoy their very nice cups of Yorkshire tea and the hospitality that Neil and Natasha and the team here at Universal Live extend to us. So thanks very much to them for allowing the podcast studio to be set up here today. We're going to be recording several episodes whilst we're here. On today's episode, we welcome back Judith Wilson. Judith Wilson is the event director for EVENTIT, the Scottish event show that takes place on Thursday the 19th of March this year up in Scotland. We're going to be finding out a little bit more about this event, some changes, some new elements that have been added. But first of all, Judith, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem at all. And it's a big year for you guys. This is the 5th year of the show. There are a number of things happening this year. There are a number of changes that take place. So I think first and most importantly, let's start in terms of location. Where are we going to be this year when EVENTIT returns in March?
We are going to be in Edinburgh at the Edinburgh International Conference Centre. That's where we did our first year. This is our 5th now, I can't believe. So we've been 3 years in Glasgow and we've come back over to the east to Edinburgh.
And what was the sort of the thought process behind moving, from one city to, back to Edinburgh?
I think as much as anything to keep the show alive, to have various kind of differences. It's the two centres are very different. Each have their really good kind of points to, they're great selling points for both venues. They're fantastic. Yeah. But it's just nice to have something different, particularly for the visitors, so that they know that it's somewhere different. It's easier, obviously, for the people on the east to come to Edinburgh. It's easier for people on the west to go to Glasgow. So it's quite a simple kind of reason for moving it back and forwards.
I suppose in the grand scheme of things, though, people often forget that the distance between Glasgow and Edinburgh is actually not a great distance, between the two
like
cities.
40 minutes on the train.
Yeah. So we're talking in terms of duration of journey and even length of journey, distances that people who work in London every day and would commute in from the suburbs or the home counties, it's probably less of a commute to them. So in the grand scheme of things, whilst any change of venue for an event like this is significant, in terms of geography, you're not moving it to another planet at all.
No, absolutely not. And it's just as easy for people who are outside Scotland. It is just as easy for them to come up to, whether it's Edinburgh or Glasgow. That's something that we often find, that people forget, that it's actually, they can come up to the show for the day from London in one day. They don't have to stay overnight. Absolutely. They can just literally pop up and pop back.
Yeah, or if you fancy the train ride, there's also, of course, that lovely train journey up the East Coast Main Line when you get through Northumberland and around the coast there and into Edinburgh. So it's worth it just for the train journey alone if you go on that. When I said that this is a big year for you guys, getting to year 5, I know people want to establish shows and do multiple years, but there's something about hitting those numbers, 5 years, 10 years, 15, there's something about that sort of 5th year of any event where I guess you must feel like this is very much a firm fixture that you've established yourself.
Oh, I think so. And that's been very apparent in just when we've been speaking to people. I think it's, as you say, the first few years people are looking in, kind of, is it going to work? Is it sustainable? But once you get to year 5, people are like, yeah, this is a show that's worth coming to. It's a show that's worth exhibiting at. It's a show that's worth visiting. And it's helped because it's then built our whole connections, not just in Scotland, but across the whole of the UK.
Because going back to this fact that yes, it's the Scottish event show, but there are national event shows that take place in London and in Manchester. I know it's called the Scottish Event Show, and that's the focus is on bringing an events business into Scotland, looking at Scottish suppliers and everything that's associated with what the country has to offer. But there's no reason why it should just have to focus on that.
No, absolutely not. And I think when we first set it up, that's what we thought was going to happen, that it was just going to be a showcase for Scottish suppliers, Scottish buyers. but that has changed quite dramatically since year one. And we now have quite a number of exhibitors from outside Scotland. So we've got the likes of Valor Hospitality, we've got GHS, we have got the studio, who obviously have places across the UK. We've got a number of the tech companies who are coming up, which is fantastic. We've just, because it's, you know, it is an opportunity, because it's a very buoyant industry in Scotland. The industry is worth 3.5 billion. And that's not just events happening in Scotland. That is events that being held by or put on by Scottish companies, but sometimes held outside Scotland. So if you look at some of the big event planners who come along to the show, so the likes of Conference Partners International, the likes of Fitwise, RBS, all these companies, they're doing events, yes, big events in Scotland, but they're doing events not just in the UK, but also overseas. Of
course. Yeah, and perhaps we forget that, you know, Glasgow and Edinburgh are home and provide, you know, not just the national, but some of the European bases of a number of major corporations and companies.
Absolutely.
You've got very, very well-respected educational links to both cities through their universities. And of course, in the last few years, a lot of our listeners will be aware and have seen huge transformation in both of those cities. There's been investment in certain parts of the city where that's seen a transformation in terms of their reputation, what they have to offer as destinations.
Yes,
so of course, that all ties in.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, I mean, the Glasgow Convention Bureau, I think, has it been 12 years, something like that now, has been voted the best convention bureau. And Edinburgh has been one of the top convention areas to come to. So, you know, this is, you know, we're winning accolades all over. And, you know, now in Aberdeen, they've opened the new Teca area. So again, we've got the opportunity, you know, we've got the big oil companies up here. So we've got a huge business here. And with EVENTIT, what we're trying to do is, you know, enable people to come up and meet the suppliers. So because we've got some great suppliers in Scotland, so we are looking so they can use the people from a sustainable point of view. It means they can use people who are on the ground. We've got brilliant venues, brilliant you know, other sort of suppliers. So
well, it must be great when you see things like the BBC Sports Personality of the Year show taking place from the new arena in Aberdeen. I think, if I'm right in saying,
absolutely,
they use that, and so straight away, you know, people who think, oh, hold on, Aberdeen's right up in the north of Scotland. You know, if they've got the infrastructure to be able to deliver that level of show, then perhaps I need to go and have a look at it. Things like that must be a great advertisement for
absolutely. And COP26 is coming to Glasgow. You know, so it's a sort of major global event. Being a bit contradictory, but it's a major global event which is coming through to Glasgow later this year. So.
Well, one thing we should also point out to listeners of the podcast today as well is that EVENTIT, yes, is a show in itself, but this year is actually co-located with a biannual business event that happens alongside EVENTIT every couple of years. That is called the Business Events Leaders Summit, BELS. And I'm just curious, maybe if you could touch on a little bit of that, Judith, and tell us what's going to be happening with that particular event and how it does dovetail with EVENTIT.
Yeah, this one, as you say, we did the first one 2 years ago. This is our second, delighted to say, second time round that Visit Britain are our headline sponsor of that. And what we do is we bring together speakers from across the UK. Last time we had a number of international ones. We are looking, last time we did it, we were looking at the economic impact of business events. This time we are looking at the emerging markets and the opportunities and challenges of emerging markets. And when we talk about emerging markets, it's not just, we're talking obviously nationality, so people who are coming in from different countries. So some of the emerging markets, say, come from the ASEAN countries and such like. So you're looking at obviously issues with language, possibly transportation. You're looking at various catering things, all the various things that go with that. But we're also very much looking at emerging markets with regards to the generations. So the millennials and beyond, who are looking for different formats. They have a different way that they want. They want to be more engaged with what's going on. They don't necessarily want to be spoken at. They want to be part of the discussions at events. So the way that the format and everything else has changed. We're also delighted we have got Kieran Holmes-Darby, who is from Excel Esports. So he'll be looking at that. That's, as we know, another huge phenomena in our industry, as to these masses of people and thousands of people who are coming to watch the XL esports. So it's big globally. And the other side is looking at, sector as well. So obviously esports being one of them, but the tech sector being another. I know in Scotland we have a very buoyant tech sector. So we don't have much event technology. We do need that up here, but general technology we do really well. So we are looking at how the changes and the challenges and opportunities of working with the tech sector, who are running some huge events and festivals. We've got FinTech, we've got the Touring Fest, both of which we've got speakers talking from. And also we have Tracy Hallowell coming up from London and Partners to talk about, again, the tech fest that happened down in London. And again, it's a different way of doing things. But a very successful way of doing things.
And it's interesting so I was going to say, one of the interesting things, just looking at your website, when the summary of the event leaders, the Business Events Leaders Summit is mapped out, and it says how business events create lasting economic and social impacts. And the economic impact there is key. We've spoken actually recently on the podcast about corporate business and how event organisers are now playing a greater role in the strategic planning and the business planning of major corporations and major businesses now, because they see that events can deliver certain economic benefits to a company. They're not just seen as something that they do every now and then as a bit of brand activation or a bit of engagement. Actually, when they sit down to look at what business they want to generate over a course of the year, what their bottom line is, how they want to improve certain areas of P&L, they will look at events as part of that in the same way as they would look at staff retention, human resources, marketing, advertising, etc., etc. So that there are significant tie-ins now with business leaders and the staging and the organisation of events.
Oh, absolutely. And I know from our last we refer to it as BELS because it's much easier than saying Business Event Leaders Summit. Our last BELS conference, we had a number of those sort of outcomes were talked about, because I know within the medical, I know a lot of our speakers were saying within the medical industry, by the time something has been published, people are missing the boat. So a lot of the key people within the medical industry, they want to go to live events to meet with the top people within their sector to discuss things that are happening in the industry. Because once it has then become into a published paper, you've potentially missed the boat. You're behind the curve. So live events are really, really important. And I think, as you say, for the development and economic development of organizations and areas, because it's on the back of some of these connections that are made that people then interact with the leaders within certain areas, both geographically and sector wise, and on the back of that build, bring teams, set up satellite or main offices in near to where the key people are.
Absolutely. I'm keen to talk about some of the actual, some of the real sort of content and some of the actual elements that people will see and be able to interact with at the event this year. And one thing in particular that jumped out at me is that this year, I believe you're going to be using digital goodie bags, and you're going to be using actually a supplier that we had on the podcast very, very recently. Go to the Event Industry News podcast page on the website or on your podcast downloader, and if you search for Phenomena, we did a podcast recently about the use of digital goodie bags replacing traditional goodie bags that are being handed out. That ties in hugely with the whole sustainability issue that the events industry is talking about, Judith. And tell us a little bit about what led you towards the use of Phenomena, and particularly just the concept of digital goodie bags this year.
Well, funnily enough, I actually met them for the first time at EVENTIT Live many years. I think it must have been about 4 years ago, something. And having had goodie bags in a variety of events over the years, I was so struck by, as you say, the sustainable side of that, but also the longevity of it, because people, when they're given a physical voucher, how many of those have we lost over the years? And you kind of think, oh, I really needed, I think I had a voucher for that somewhere. Yeah. Whereas this has that brilliant opportunity for the exhibitors. We're using the option whereby our exhibitors can do two things. They can use the system, the phenomena to attract people to their stand on the day by saying, come along, get a bar of chocolate, whatever it might be. But they also, once they interact with the people at the stand, they can then unlock a voucher that can be used over a 12-month period. Right. So that might be, a discount if they book the venue. It might be, a pre-night's accommodation or something like that. But it just means it's a way of attracting them to their stand, and it also enables them to track their ROI from an exhibition. Yeah. And both of those are key for us to ensure that, and it's also great from the point of view of the visitors who are coming. They go away with a huge number of vouchers and discounts and things that they can use over the next year.
Yeah, and there's a practicality issue as well as sustainability issue. In terms of you've not got physical products, and with physical products comes packaging. With packaging comes waste. With handing out physical bags, you've got staffing costs. You've got to then figure out where you're going to put them on the show floor, what works for the sponsor of those, if you've got a sponsor, what demands they might want. So in terms of from a practicality, sustainability, logistics, production point of view, there's so many benefits to doing it this way now.
Oh no, I think it's a brilliant system, and we're really excited about using it. And the guys are coming over and taking a stand at the show as well, so they'll be there to be able to sort of speak to everyone. So no, it's great.
And there's a bigger interactive, sort of going further, one stage further in this interactive element. That's true throughout the content of the show this year, isn't it? There's going to be a number of ways that people can interact with certain elements of the content.
Yes, what we wanted to do is, each year we want to bring sort of changes to the show, and we spend a lot of time talking both to our exhibitors and to the people who come along to the show. So we know that people want to have different things, to be able to see different things and have a chance not just to interact with the exhibitors, but also to interact with each other. And we are also working with another company called Blendology, who do badges whereby, the tap badges, which we will be using more for delegates to be able to, in a networking area, connect with each other. Because we obviously have the data capture scanners and things for our exhibitors, but this is a way of some of the delegates interacting with each other. We're also going to be running a number of different sessions through the day, so it might be sort of drinks tastings, it might be, other kind of interactive things for people to do. Yeah. There might be some demos going on. We tend to have flash mob entertainment as well. So we're working with a number of people who will be seen on the show floor at different times through the day. Our learning sessions, we have probably our biggest program this year, which is great. And they run from anything from the Marcoms to event technology to future of events to our leadership stage, and looking at everything from the incentives market, which is huge. I mean, we had, I think sometimes people forget how big the incentives programs are. We had a company 2 years ago who brought in 1,400 people from America into Edinburgh for 1 week, and they were staying in all 4- and 5-star properties. So they had an absolute team of everything to enable to give the activities over a week. They also brought it was the first week of Edinburgh Festival, but that's just another matter. But so that incentives is a massive area. Also looking at, we've got sort of sessions, which we've got panels with people from the likes of Bitwise and RBS and Open Audience and things, looking at things like running a financial events, successful financial events, running medical events, dealing with associations. And we're also got, looking at the likes of LinkedIn, social media, looking at catering. So there's a huge number. And again, the speakers that we've got are from across the UK. Some sort of old favourites such as Ali Turner, we've got Rob Davidson, we've got Kim Meyer, we've got people from Event Scotland, Visit Scotland, and as I say, across a number of the corporates. So we're really excited about our programme as well. And what we do is we do allow people to book some of the sessions in advance. It's all free, but it just means that they know they can schedule their day.
And it's a packed schedule. That there's a lot to see there, a lot to interact with, and I'm sure you've been asked this question on many occasions. But you're now up to your 5th year. It's still a one-day event. How much demand is there on you to extend it? Are you happy with the format at the moment? And are there plans already in place for the future as to how you would like to take the event further?
I think we would keep at the moment with the 1 day. I think people are so busy. It's quite difficult to take, perhaps more than 1 day out. And that, I say that for our exhibitors and everyone else involved. I think that the learning, Scotland is still a relatively sort of smaller location, and rather than having the same number of visitors over 2 days, we'd rather have them across the 1 day.
Sure, yeah.
And, it's easy enough for people to come up for a day, which is nice. It just means that, as I say, if they're coming from outside Scotland, they can be up and down in the day. The idea of being able to increase the education side with the BELS conference is major to us. I think that because it's quite a key thing in Scotland that a lot of the big education programs are down south.
Yeah.
And so it's a great opportunity for people to get involved in the big discussions. But for a lot of the Scottish people and the people from the north of England, it's more on their doorstep.
Yeah.
We run a small, we don't do a fam trip, but we don't do a host to buyer, but we're running a fam trip. We've done small fam trips in conjunction with the show. And we're doing one this year in conjunction with HBAA and EVENTIT and ENA, and bringing people up from London for sort of basically 3 days. So that means they get an opportunity to get involved in the show and also to see all the various things we have to offer in Scotland.
Sure. It's I suppose it's probably key to point out that if for any of our podcast listeners who are unfamiliar with the Edinburgh International Conference Centre, the EICC, it is in the west end of the city, and there are actually 2 significant train stations in Edinburgh, one of which is Haymarket, and the venue is actually just a matter of minutes walk from Haymarket. And on that side of the city, it's also on the right side of the city for the airport as well, for anybody who wants to commute up.
Absolutely.
That way. So when we're talking about location, it really is it's a great location as a venue.
It is great because, as you say, it's half an hour maximum from the airport. We even got a tram that stops on the...
Of course, the new tram.
Yeah, absolutely. So it stops at Haymarket, and it's a 10-minute walk, if that. And so that's... Which is great. And as you say, because it's so central, and Edinburgh, there are a lot of the corporates in Edinburgh, a lot of the DMCs are in Edinburgh, and it does mean a lot of the a lot of the event agencies, to be honest. You know, a lot of key ones are in Edinburgh or in the east, but certainly for those in Edinburgh, it means they can kind of pop out through the day.
Sure.
They don't have to, you know, schedule a whole day at the show. They can come for, you know, a few hours quite easily. And we've added in this year as well, we're doing a PA reception for the last hour and a half. So
Right.
because again, a lot of them don't get the opportunity to get out of the office through the day.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them can just nip along after work. So.
Fantastic. The Scottish event show EVENTIT takes place at the Edinburgh International Conference Centre on Thursday, the 19th of March 2020. As we've spoken about on today's episode, it's going to be co-located this year with the biannual Business Events Leaders Summit, BELS, with a lot of ties between it. Judith, it's been great having you back on the show today to find out what's happening with the event this year. If people do want to find out more about it directly, where do they need to go to?
Just go to the website, eventit.org.uk, and you can sort of see, you've got all the information there. You can kind of see all our exhibitors who we have at the moment. We've got the live floor plan up there. You can register, it's free to register to come along. And also you've got a link through to the BELS website. Those are, I mean, obviously we're out on all the social media platforms, but certainly that's the best way to sign up for everything.
There you go. So to check out the website, podcast followers. And as Judith mentions, I know that EVENTIT are very active on Twitter and the other social media platforms. So I'm sure if there's updates and bits of news that the team are going to be communicating in the run up to the event, make sure you follow them on social media as well to find out what's happening. Our thanks to Judith Wilson for joining the podcast today. If you are watching the podcast on the eventindustrynews.com website, don't forget to have a little look around the website whilst you're here and check out some of the latest news, features and content that's on Event Industry News. You could probably go and have a look at the new sustainable event guide that was released very recently as well. Worth checking that out. Of course, if you're already on the website and you're watching the video, don't forget that you can also go over to your podcast download platform on your smartphone or tablet and check out audio versions of all of our podcasts and listen back to some of the stuff that we've spoken about. And we've mentioned Phenomena Events today and their involvement with EVENTIT this year and the use of the digital goodie bags. If you don't know about that particular concept, go and check out their episode from a few weeks ago as well to find out a little bit about that whole concept of digital goodie bags and how it ties in with the sustainability subject that's been talked about so heavily in the industry at the moment. It brings us nicely to the end of today's episode. Our thanks once again to Judith Wilson, Event Director from EVENTIT, and my name's James Dixon. We'll see you on the next episode of the Event Industry News podcast. Goodbye.